What's going on, good people? Mary Young with Fantastic Forum here at Long Beach Comic Con, and I am standing with Eddie deANGELINI, the creator of Collectors. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Look, cons have been in the process, of course, of slowly returning. How many cons have you gotten the opportunity to do since the pandemic and whatnot? I mean, if we can say since, but you know.
Done about 3.
Okay.
LA Comic Con this last year, the end of the year, which was fantastic. Super busy. Did WonderCon and now this one here.
Awesome. And so what have you thought about what the con scene has been like, again, if we can say post,
Hey, I think people are just excited to get back.
I agree.
That's like what I said about LA Comic Con. It was busy like you wouldn't believe. The aisles were packed. I'd never seen it so busy. It literally was like a pack of dogs and someone left the gate wide open and they all just poof. That's what it was like. So it's been fun. It's been really great getting back. And not only that, seeing people that I haven't seen in about 2 years.
I know, right?
Yeah. Like this guy right here.
I agree. What was it like for you during that time creatively? Because I mean, I understand that this is work that you can still do during a shutdown, but at the same time, what was it like for you during that time and making your book?
So I tell people I went into the pandemic an introvert. I came out a hermit. People complained about how they couldn't stand being locked in the house.
Yeah.
I loved it.
That's fair.
I love sitting at home and making comics, and I had an excuse of why I couldn't do anything but sit home and make comics.
Yeah.
I, during that pandemic, came out with 2 new books.
Nice.
During that time, and I'm already working on, or put together, my first trade paperback collection of my comic that's coming out later this month.
Nice.
So I took the opportunity of being at home more to be productive and get a lot done, and really further and market myself pretty much all online.
Yeah.
You didn't have shows to go to. You didn't have store signings you could do for quite some time. So it was a chance to really build your brand, rethink of what you're doing, and really represent yourself online in a whole new way. And that's what I did. Indeed.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, tell them what Collectors is. Like what is the impetus behind it, and what they can expect when they grab an issue of Collectors.
Collectors is my comic strip, my weekly web comic that I've been doing this is the 10th year I've been doing.
Really? Has it been 10 years already?
It's been 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know, I thought I would be rich and have like an animated TV deal by now, but it's still not happening quite yet.
Not yet. Soon.
Yeah. But it's been 10 years, and I got to say that 10 years, that's how long it took for me, I think, to actually really get good at what I was doing. And I think the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, was when I really felt comfortable being a cartoonist and really felt like I was really starting to do my best work. So what is Collectors about? It is I'll say, semi-autobiographical comic strip about me, my wife, my comic book collecting, and all the nerdy stuff that she has to put up with living with me.
Yeah.
My wife, the tagline that she describes it as, it's about a comic book collector who loves his wife and his comic book collection, but not always in that order.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. What would you say is the wildest thing that you were able to put into Collectors that actually happened?
In the 4th book, now when I do a book, in case you don't realize, every time I do a book, it usually compiles about a year and a half of the weekly webcomics that I do online, but I always do original material. I always include some type of original story, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages long.
That's good stuff.
And in the 4th book, I included the story of my wife and I, where we tell what our first loves were. My wife tells a story about her first boyfriend she had in junior high, who she caught kissing another girl, her best friend. Heartbreak. Of course, my first love was a comic book. I tell the heartbreaking story about when I was a kid and I mowed lawns all summer to afford, to raise money to be able to buy a copy of Spider-Man #1. And we're not talking like 90s McFarlane Spider-Man #1. We're talking about the real deal from the early 60s.
Oh,
and
wow.
This was like the mid-80s, to show everyone how old I am. And I spent $300 on a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #1, and I loved that comic. And I chronicle what happened to that comic in this book.
Oh,
and
wow.
It came to a horrible, tragic end in the most horrible way possible.
Oh, there it is.
In the 4th issue. So
look, you got to get the book if you want to know the end of the story.
And it really happened as actual true story.
Yeah, man. And so, as you said, 10 years with collectors. So you're a creator.
Yeah.
But you're also a retailer.
Yes.
As well. And so, I definitely want to ask you about that aspect of things in regards to like, how do you feel about, or what was it like going through the pandemic and the comic book industry on that end? And how do you feel about it now that, we're kind of coming out of things? What was that like for you, Eddie?
It was tough. People say, oh my God, it must have been horrible going through lockdown and being closed for those few months during the pandemic. That wasn't so bad because a lot of my employees during that time, a lot of people who were laid off from their job or couldn't go in, were able to get unemployment and get benefits. So I knew that my staff were all taken care of. But me and my wife continued to go into the shop every day, even though we were closed, and doing everything we could to make money online to keep things going. And that wasn't so bad because we would show up at work. We would maybe like bring a pizza, maybe like some beer, enjoy the day while we're working. It wasn't so bad. And then we were able to open up again. And a week later, after we were able to open, we got looted. For those of you who might not be aware, we had the George Floyd protests happen a week or so after we were able to open after lockdown. A cause which we at the store wholeheartedly 100% agree with and support. There was just unfortunately a certain amount of people that were there, not necessarily to protest or be part of the cause, but to take advantage of the crowds and cause damage. And they did break into the shop and basically loot the shop and destroy a lot of stuff and steal a lot of things.
And I do remember when that happened and you all, still like literally publicly showed your support for the cause and whatnot after the fact, which was, good stuff and really like, good to see, just because, not everybody that would have been in that situation would have been, at least, or would have been as gracious, I guess I should say, or be able to handle that.
Yeah, it wasn't the cause and the people who support the cause that looted our shop. It was just a bad element that was around the fringes that did it. And you know what? In a weird way, and people think I'm crazy for thinking of this, with everything that has been going on that led up to those protests, and just the protests and the actions of the police, and the anger felt by people in minority communities that are affected by that. I absolutely can understand the anger that the people who were looting, that I can absolutely understand the anger that they feel where they want to lash out. Because someone wisely said to me that when you feel like you don't have any power, you will take and grab any kind of power you can get. And if it comes out in that way, that's how it came out for them. And I absolutely understand that. As someone who is not of color, who might be a little more privileged, I don't know what it's like for someone to feel like they have no power in their lives and they're being taken advantage of. And for them to want to lash out like that because they feel that anger all the time. Am I getting too political here?
No, absolutely not, man. Like, you should definitely, like, you're speaking your truth. Hey, I'm not mad at that.
It's something that I believe in. I'm married to a woman of color. I know what she goes through. And I feel for people who are in that situation, and I want to do whatever I can to support them.
Yeah. So
on the more happier stuff.
I know, right. So business today, how would you say things are and things are going?
Hey, things are much better. There are more tourists that are coming back to the Santa Monica area. Our regulars were always there to support us, even when we were looted, and they knew, we live in an area, our shop is in an area that is a little more, liberal leaning, more progressive.
Yeah.
So when we came out and we're still supporting the people who were protesting even after the looting, that only solidified our relationship with a lot of our regulars because they felt the same way, and they all came out and said, hey, anything we can do. As soon as you guys are able to, we'll come in and spend money. We'll buy stuff off of you online. We'll do whatever we can.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that we live that we have our shop in a community where people will come out like that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So going back to collectors.
Yeah, let's. Let me tell you a fun story about the latest issue.
Go for it.
Issue number 6. Now, what I do all the time on my books is I will always do an homage to a classic comic book cover. And in case you guys don't recognize this, this is an homage to Harvey Picar's American Splendor #1.
Oh, wow.
His comic book, American Splendor. So when I started posting this image when I had the cover before the book came out, I had people that were getting on my case about it, saying that, oh, well, I hope you're, sending money to his widow for ripping off the cover. And
ripping off?
Yeah. And Harvey's widow, Joyce Brabner, chimed in online to defend me and said, no, that's an homage.
Right.
Harvey would love that. Thank you for doing that cover. And then she called me.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was awesome. And in case you don't know, before Joyce married Harvey, she owned a comic book shop herself.
Really?
And so when she called me, we ended up just like swapping crazy stories about comic shop ownership.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. I appreciate that she did that.
One thing that is awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always admired about you and always like blew my mind is the fact that you're able to come up with ideas for the strip as consistently as you do.
I'm just surprised too. Because every week I go, what am I going to do now? I don't have any ideas.
And
I don't know.
And that's exactly my question. Like, how do you know? Like, where do you get those ideas from to make sure that you do it?
Well, it's from our nerd life. I mean, you look around and say, what's going on right now? Hey, a new Ant-Man movie is coming out. Hey, She-Hulk is coming out. What are people saying about it? What are people in the shop saying about it? What does my wife think about it? Or what's some funny thing that me and my wife talked about the other day? And just ideas come from stuff like that. But a lot of times, I got to be honest with you, I always thought, I'm going to write out a bunch of comic strips and I'm going to have stuff ready to go.
Right.
It's never happened because when I sit down to write, I go, I can't think of anything. I don't know. And then I literally will come up with ideas the week that I'm doing them.
Oh, wow.
I don't have,
So you're doing like the South Park schedule, like, where it's like, though you're like trying to meet a deadline, like right to the limit.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
man.
well, I did one for this week. I don't have one for next week. I trust I'll come up with an idea and a joke. And I usually do.
Man. Speaking.
I just do it by the seat of my pants.
Yeah. Speaking of She-Hulk, do you have any thoughts on have you seen the latest episode of She-Hulk?
Yes.
You have any thoughts on the twerk seen around the world?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I don't know why people don't get that it's literally the MCU's version of a sitcom. This series.
Yeah.
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
I mean, people complain that she twerked. Didn't Star-Lord do a dance-off in one of the Guardians movies?
He absolutely did.
Didn't Tony dance and pee in his Iron Man armor in Iron Man 2, I think?
He did?
Yeah. I guess nobody cared about that stuff?
Well,
What's the big deal?
Hey, I'm with you.
You know what? I've been fighting with people about that online.
Really?
And fighting, I use that word
loosely.
But I always approach it with, okay, when someone's against it, I say, well, tell me exactly what it is about it that is that you don't like or that you object to. I still have yet to get an actual answer.
Yeah. I kind of feel like if you've read She-Hulk, you would understand that that's something that she probably would do if, that might have been in an actual comic if there was a Megan Thee Stallion back then.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
back then. Maybe not this version of She-Hulk currently, but that's a whole different thing. But
And if you're online calling the current MCU MCU,
yeah,
you're an idiot and you just need to go away.
that's fair.
Yeah. Just
That's
go
fair.
away.
That's
You're
fair.
not allowed to watch any of this stuff anymore. Just disappear.
So, Eddie, why don't you go ahead and tell the people where it is that they can pick up copies of Collectors, and also too, if you want to plug the shop, like, please feel free.
Yeah. You can always read Collectors at collectorscomic.com, which is my website. And there's links to all the socials right there on the website. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can follow me on there. And when you're on my site, you can join the newsletter, because I send out every week the newest comic strip out to my newsletter, email newsletter list, and so you can get the new comic strip in your inbox every week automatically.
Nice.
And you can also buy the print volumes of Collectors in my shop, Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica. 1803 Lincoln Boulevard. So being a retailer guarantees that I'll at least always have at least one place to sell my comic.
There it is.
Yeah.
Eddie, thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate you. Always good talking to you, man.
Yes.